that's what I view resistance as. So if we're taking the 225 bench press, for example, and we're going to do a 3-second down phase and then a 1-second up phase, how much resistance is that compared to if you're just doing a 1 up, 1 down? It's way more with the same load.
Yeah, same load. Hey y'all, DFOS here. My goal with this Limitless Theory 360 podcast is to connect you with the very people that have positively impacted my life and will continue to impact thousands of others by providing education-based and actionable techniques to creating a limitless perspective on life. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another podcast with Jake Card, our first double guest here on the show.
Yep.
We got some cool things going on, but how was your morning so far, Jake?
Good. I had some avocados, the daily avocado like you.
Yeah, the daily
Feeling good.
I've been slacking on the avocado a little bit, I can't lie.
How come?
I'm finding it hard to get actual quality avocados.
Interesting.
Very strange. Every one I buy is either rock solid or it's good, and when I open it, it has brown spots all over it when I cut into it.
Must be imports from where you're at in Florida, because in Massachusetts they're all green.
Strange. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going to the wrong places. We'll figure it out. But we're gonna go a little more focused today, right? So we're gonna talk about load versus resistance and circuit training versus muscle building. Me and Jake are sort of on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to the way we work out specifically. And I think that's going to be really good for this podcast. And the content of it, the contrast will be cool to see and talk about. So first and foremost, kind of like, can you provide a definition for load versus resistance or a comparison?
Okay, so when you're lifting, the load is, in my opinion, the total weight. So let's say you're doing 225 bench press. That would be the load. But when I look at resistance, I don't really look at the textbook definition. I look at how much force you're applying with that load. So let's say we go into the up and down phases, concentric and eccentric phases of a lift. That's what I view resistance as. So if we're taking the 225 bench press, for example, and we're going to do a 3-second down phase and then a 1-second up phase, how much resistance is that compared to if you're just doing a 1 up, 1 down? It's way more with the same load.
Yeah, same load.
So that's kind of what I look at, especially when I'm kind of prescribing clients as well, and with my own workouts. I try to see how can I not get as much stress on my joints and ligaments, because that's huge for me for longevity. I don't really want to be deadlifting 700 pounds. I don't really have any goals for that, because then I can't exercise. And what do I tell people all the time? Like, exercise is my therapy and exercise is like my release. So if I can't do that, it wasn't worth it to risk that for, like, a heavy lift, for example.
Yeah. It is medicine, right? And you don't want to overdose.
No. That's a good.
So I think of load versus resistance as load being an amount of weight that you are attached to, something that you are either holding on to or has some sort of gravitational force on you. I think of that as load. I think of resistance as something that is not actually loading a joint or the body from a gravitational force standpoint directly, right? Like a band versus your 225 bench.
Yep.
What I really do like the view of resistance with isometric, eccentric, concentric, because that takes into effect, like you said, force. And now you can move that load at a different pace and produce different force. It's all kind of up in the air, like you had mentioned before we even started this, right? Like there's a lot of different perspectives and things that you can kind of take in theory and apply to your clients. So give me an example of something that you would maybe partner or compound set a heavy bench press with. So say you're doing barbell 225 bench press. Now give me something that, by my definition, you would think is a more of a resistance exercise hitting the same muscle groups.
So for your definition, I would pair that with, like, let's say if someone has a weak bench, right? We're going to look at why they have a weak bench, or why they want, if they want to increase it, what is the limiting factor in that chain of movement. And I would first probably, like you said, bands. I mean, bands are amazing to change the tension and the firing pattern of the muscle. And also, bands, they almost, you can discover what is weak in the chain 100%. So I would probably pair, what I do sometimes is I pair push-ups, banded push-ups.
Nice.
With to supplement my bench pressing. Obviously, I don't barbell bench press ever, but when I'm doing dumbbell work, sometimes if I'm at a plateau or if I just want to regress week by week, that's something that's also a really important topic people got to know. Just to dive off for like 10 seconds, please do not do the same weight in the same reps and the same volume every week by week, and never back off, because you will get injured. Yeah. So there you go. That's my tangent for you. but I would definitely say that banded push-ups, or banded anything, even banded pull-ups, they're phenomenal. They just attack kind of the weaknesses in the chain of movement, and you're able to be more explosive too. Because look, the resistance is different from the top to the bottom now with bands versus with dumbbells or barbells or even cables.
Yeah, because it's relative, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the band extends, it gets harder for you to actually move and push that and extend it. So now, to kind of dive to the side a little bit there, like if you take something like a banded push-up, would you say that has a gravitational load on your body?
No.
Okay. Now, if you take that same example, right? Let's take that exact same position, but now move on to our feet. Mm-hmm. And now you're in this position, the band is behind your back, and you're doing presses here. Does that have a different gravitational load on your body?
Absolutely. Yeah, because instead of now, you've changed the plane of movement.
Mm-hmm.
I change the angles all the time with bands, and it changes the whole entire movement. If I'm strong, just horizontally and vertically, it could be vice versa for the other one, which is true for me. I'm really strong in the bottom, but as soon as I find, if I elevate my feet, or if I just try to do it just standing up straight, I'm way weaker than if I have contact with the floor.
Interesting. So I would disagree with you there on the push-up. I would look at that as a gravitational load, because that band has a descending load on your body, whereas you're standing straight, it's behind you. So there's no gravitational load on your joints in that sense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like you said, because you, for example, are stronger there, where I, for example, am stronger on my feet, right? So like literally opposite ends of the spectrum.
Of training style, because you definitely train. You probably train your weak points more than I do, because I train my glamour muscles and I'm doing volume and direct work, but you're doing a lot more plyometrics, calisthenics. You're doing more band work, more resistant work, lateral stuff. Like you, if you put both of us up side by side, you're a way better athlete than I am. Okay, so but that just goes to training style.
No, 100%. And I was going to say the nature of my background is athletics, right? So I always think train like an athlete, train like someone who's getting ready to play some sort of sport. And for me, I played basketball, so I was always on my feet. It's interesting how those things play out over time.
Speaking of that, I need to get you in contact with a friend, a personal trainer down. He used to train at Crunch, named Mike, and he actually played at LaSalle on the basketball team. And he was Mike Jones, and his first ever point was a dunk.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's what's up. What year did he play?
It might have been he's 10 years older than us.
Okay.
But he's really knowledgeable. He's huge on Poliquin. He's just like, you would love him, and he's all about athletic based training. I gave him your Instagram and looked you up. He liked you a lot. So, but he should be on here. It was a 3-way podcast.
Right. We can do that. Yeah. We can make that work. I mean, to keep going off of these two, right? Load versus resistance, and gravitational load. Now, do you look at the body as like levers? Do you look at it as a lever-based system?
Yes, absolutely. It goes hand in hand with Ben. Like, I love Ben Pakulski and all of his methods. And before I prescribe any movement, especially with in-person training, I'll teach the person, not just show them. I'll teach them the levers in the body and what, like, the origins and insertions of muscles, and like actually how they move and what's the action of each muscle, so you can visualize it. Because if it's same thing with learning in school, if I'm going to teach you something, you better believe that I'm also going to teach you why we're doing it, what's the real world application, and show you it in action, not just give you a formula. That's not the way I learned, at least. So that's how I teach people with the bench press, for example. I always tell people, stack your elbows and wrists in the same line, so 90-90. And instead of just, coming up like this, like a bench press, I want you to envision, like, constantly, like, almost shut your eyes, right? And envision your elbows and your wrists stacked on top of each other the whole time. Even when you come down, most people come down like this.
Yeah.
I want you to rip them out so they're stacked underneath. That way we can keep constant tension, and then that people are like mind blown, because then the activation of the muscle recruitment, because now they're using the right levers, is insane compared to if they were just repping it out regularly.
And that changes the muscle fiber damage, which allows for quicker and better growth. So to bounce off of that, right? I think what we're taught in school is 100% pulleys and levers, right? That's exactly how we're taught in kinesiology class to think about the body. I don't know if you're familiar with people like Pat Davidson and Bill Hartman, who are talking about this concept of our body being a pressure-based system. And pulleys and levers being almost like the molecule is to the atom. That is step 2, where the pressure-based system is step 1, in a sense that everything is working off of the diaphragmatic core that we have all of our pulleys and levers attached to.
Mm-hmm.
So diving into those things has been pretty cool, not just from the standpoint of like getting away from the norm, because a lot of people do that just to do that.
I know.
Yeah. But to understand 100% where they're coming from and why they're actually trying to take this theory and dive more into it and really, unpeel the onion. But
You elaborate, because I don't think my audience has any idea what that is, but that would be eye-opening for sure.
okay, so if you, right, everyone thinks of muscles that like they work in like this vacuum of some sort, right? Like someone's like, oh, my calf hurt. It must have been because I did this with my foot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could be it, but there could be 100 other reasons.
Yeah.
And the reason being is everything is connected. There's no fence in the body. And when you think of pulleys and levers, you think of do one thing, get a result. And that's kind of the extent of kinesiology class from what we learned, right? Yeah. And then you get into, much like you have yourself, these concepts of how breathing affects those pulleys and levers from an efficiency standpoint, from a power output standpoint, and force production. All of those things come into effect, and you have to think of, once again, what are those pulleys and levers even attached to? And that's our core, which consists of our diaphragm. And our diaphragm actually works like a piston. A lot of people think it's almost your back stays straight and your stomach breathes out.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
They think of it as this one-sided, opening where our rib cage is this 3D sphere, and the diaphragm is nothing but a bottom and a top. It's a sphere, right? It's got a rounded bottom and top, your pelvic floor, and your upper thoracic cavity that's encapsulated by ribs 1, clavicle, and the top of your scapula. And when you breathe, it's supposed to work in that exact same motion where you are extending up and down spherically in all 4 directions, which it's a sphere, so it's not really 4, it's infinite, right? There's no actual direction. And the ability to make that breathing efficient, the ability for all of those muscles to work cohesively so that the diaphragm does expand like that, all has to do with gradient pressures, which when you get down even deeper into it, has to do with the quantum field, right? Like what they talk about is, this glass has a quarter of water. Well, the other, 75% is not empty. It's filled with something, right? And the same thing applies for our diaphragm. And when you have gradient fields, right, you have pressure built up in one place versus another, it flows in that direction, right, where water is going to go where it is most easily allowed.
Yeah.
Right? So those things all come into play, and I don't know if your audience got a lot out of that because it jumped around a lot. But what are some main things that you take from that, and what are some main things that you may be teaching to your clients about those concepts, but they may not even know?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If you were to try to explain to someone, you're obviously going a little bit outside the box now and thinking, which is what I do as well, and like thinking, okay, there's levers and pulleys and everything in the system, and that's how we can figure out like proper biomechanic movement and all that stuff. But what is the correlation between now you're looking at the body as a pressure system and in their, in their minds versus not really looking at it as pulleys and levers? Are they trying to say that like everything is in unison and you need to look at the whole body as a unit rather than like if you look at the lever of the arm, for example, that's only 1/50th of all the levers in the body, you know what I mean? Like, so is that what they kind of mean?
Yeah, in a sense that the efficiency for you to control the pressure going on in your diaphragm allows for that arm lever to actually move efficiently and fire correctly with 100% or as close to as possible muscle recruitment.
Perfect. That right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I 100%. Everyone watching, guys, you definitely have understood that. So that was.
So, from that standpoint, and I know we're both trying to figure these things out, or you may have a better wrap on it because you are working 100% on your own, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, I want to visually teach all of my clients, right? You can teach them from an auditory standpoint, from a visual standpoint, and from an experiential standpoint. Mm-hmm. That's how everyone is going to fall on one of those three for a learning style. So if you hit all three, you're guaranteed to teach your client the way that they are going to learn it the most. How do you go about that when you initially start working with a client? Because like for me, like I would love to have one of these things in the gym and just go to work, right? Like let's sit down for a half hour and not only give you a visual, but talk you through it and now have you move through it and create that, mental and muscle pathway, awareness. So what does that look like for you?
So I've been able to, without me even knowing, that I have even when I worked at Velocity in Norwood, I had a pretty good skill set of being able to kind of tie together like why we're doing something while doing it. And I just kind of developed that, which is great. It's a great skill to have. But if I try to do that, I mess it up. But if I'm just like talking about it and I really believe in it and trying to teach them, it really, they learn a lot. So basically what I do is like, let's talk about, let's just take like a barbell row, for example. As they're doing that exercise, we'll take a dumbbell row. As they're doing that exercise, I'm going to try to teach them. I'm going to be like, okay, show me what yours looks like. Okay. And then I'll be like, okay, now I'm going to show you mine, right? Of the correct way to do it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to try to ask them pretty quickly within like a 10-second window, like, what's the difference? And if they can't figure it out, then I'm going to explain it to them while doing it again, while I'm showing them again. And I'm going to talk through it. So I will be like, okay, look, like I want to be able to control my core in. Okay. So I'm tucking it down. So my pelvis is stable. Now my spine is stable and neutral. So now my lats have the best ability to contract. Now what I do is I'm like, okay, so what I want you to envision is release, but don't just like protract a ton forward, okay? Because then you're going to deactivate everything. I want everything to stay tight and in. So tuck your elbow and then envision you almost scooping backwards first. So like almost you're scooping down and then back with your elbow. I don't like the cue for back for like elbows back, for example. I don't like that cue because that for the most part still doesn't fix what most people's problem is, activating the bicep. Yeah. So I don't care if I'm like, oh, don't use your arms or bring your elbow back. They're still going to flex their bicep, flex their arm when they bring their elbow back. But if you have them bring their elbow down or their hand down first and then back, that almost takes the bicep out of it. Because now, same thing like with the bench press, now instead of in here, you're out here now. Mm-hmm. Now there's no way for your shoulder joint, nothing up here can fire. So now it's only the lat, which is what
I like that as well from the standpoint of you take the load off the anterior glenohumeral joint, right? Mm-hmm. Because you actually by scooping, right? You're talking about this scooping motion. You're getting that that inferior part of the trap to activate, so that you don't have anterior rotation of the scapula with protraction. You have that downward rotation and downward or retraction of the scap.
with like lat contraction. So that's the key concept. Like, I don't care how well you can contract your lat or flex your back. If you don't have proper function of the scapula, shoulder blade, and the glenohumeral joint, it's all crap. It's all worthless.
100%.
I mean, that's what I mean, proper execution. Now, there's about 15% of the time where you may see me just going crazy in the gym if I'm really feeling it. But remember, like, I've been lifting for 8 years. So, like, no matter how, if maybe a couple reps aren't perfect, textbook perfect,
yeah,
it's okay, because I can still control the load without honoring that system. But for someone who's not super advanced, you got to go by form, 100%.
Yeah. No, 110%. So now we talked a little bit about it. To bounce back, you have these concepts, right, of load versus resistance, and different training styles. How are you going to pair exercises? When you are thinking about it, is it almost as simple as, I'm going to pair a heavy loaded exercise with something less loaded, working more on muscle recruitment? Not muscle recruitment. On
like structure, stability.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, thinking of it as, for lack of a better term right now, because my mind is way off, burnout, right? Like, you're pumping blood and bringing blood flow to that area that you just recruited as many muscle fibers as possible with that heavy load.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into, okay, let's work on form, but let's continue to build that blood flow and damage those muscle fibers. Is that really how you think of it when it comes to muscle building?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Training different fiber types and different rep periods and ranges, and the end of the day, like, look, like, blood, the way to build muscle is this: get efficient muscular tissue damage, and stretch and shorten the muscle effectively, not just like barbaric, and put blood flow in. Blood flow is literally the key with all that stuff. But you can't gain muscle with blood flow if you don't have muscular tissue damage. Yeah. So they have to go hand in hand, and that goes easy. That's easy to do for a novice. But if you want to maximize that, where, you get to where the training style that I train, and some people like, if you look up on YouTube, Mountain Dog 1, he's phenomenal at that, at that kind of stuff. Even Ben Pakulski is. Like, you just have to really overanalyze the lever systems, like you said, and then the whole body as a unit, and figure out, how can I maximize this exercise, not with weight. You got to get weight out of your head. But with resistance and muscular tissue damage and blood flow, how can I maximize the bench press to maximize all three of those variables? But on the contrary, on your end, I would not train that way. If I have athletes too, and if I were to train athletes, that's the last thing I would do, because recovery is extremely important. I don't care who you are. For the most part, you really don't need to be doing, AMRAP that much. You really don't need to be doing blood flow work. You really don't need to have a pump really at all if you're an athlete.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, to take that back from you said, don't worry about load, don't worry about weight necessarily, right? You're talking about efficient muscle damage, and that doesn't have to be directly correlated with load. Now, you talked about concentric versus eccentric. The way I like to look at that as well, in the word I like to use, is tension, right? The body and the muscle doesn't know the difference between weights or loads, right? And in resistance, it knows tension.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing the nervous system comprehends from a muscular G GTO standpoint, right? From those Golgi tendon, the Golgi tendon organ standpoint, is it understands tension, and that GTO is in place. We've evolved to have that to stop ourselves from injuring our own muscle tissue.
Yeah.
And we're one of the very few animals that has that ability, right? You'll see a lion or a dog even, and gorillas, they will completely destroy their muscles and in so many ways, because their body doesn't have that nervous system evolution to tell them, hey, that muscle's about to tear, lay off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where load and resistance go with me, right? It's like, if I can make a banded exercise produce the same amount of tension under the same amount of, for a longer amount of time on a muscle, can it produce the same result from a muscle tissue damage standpoint?
So that's what I was talking to you about before, and how that's kind of controversial.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know. I love to be an open book, and I love to learn new things. And I love bands. I love resistance training. I think you can build muscle with calisthenics. You can build muscle with bands. Now, I just don't think there's a lot of studies out there that show. Let's take a bodybuilder, for example. Take one guy, same stats, same weight, similar genetics, that does a full routine barbell bench press, barbell row, barbell shoulder press, and then barbell squat. Okay. What if we do the same thing, but we figure out the load with, equipment and, in a lab setting, for example, figuring out like what the load, resistance, and tension is, and then mimic that with the resistance bands. Is that going to be, could that be the same? I don't know. I'd love to do that or see that.
That's a really, really good question. I like the way you put it too, like figure out the amount of tension being put on those muscles, mm-hmm. and now mimic it with a different weight.
I'm gonna go against the grain, and I've went against the grain when we talk about endurance with mm-hmm. building muscle and short rest periods, and say that you probably can. Like, you probably could get the same amount of muscle tissue damage and the same amount of muscle growth if you mimic the tension, and when you figure that out, obviously, of barbells and dumbbells and cables with resistance bands. I really believe that.
I would agree as well. I would agree too. So now to go back to what you were just talking about, building muscle with short rest periods, what is your take, right? Because you can transition a little bit into circuit training mm-hmm. versus your traditional muscle building techniques. You find yourself somewhere in the middle, where I find myself like completely in circuit training.
Yeah. So for years, I was doing bro splits, and I was doing 1 to 2 minute rest periods between each set. Even when we learned at LaSalle, they would tell us to do 1 to 2 minute rest periods. But what I found is, like, the more advanced you get, the less you really need that time period, unless you're doing strength training. So if I'm doing strength training and I'm trying to increase my deadlift, for example, my rest periods between sets of a set of, let's say, 4x5 or 4x2 even, it may be 5 minutes mm-hmm. rest between, even up to 8 minutes. People are like, 8-minute rest, what the heck? Mm-hmm. But you need it for your whole nervous system to kind of recuperate. But with muscular damage and tissue, like, I always say, like, and here's the thing, this is also how I've been able to stay so lean as well and kind of put a whole new aspect on it, is like, I'm not going to lose that much body fat if I'm just doing 2-minute rests, sitting around on my phone, waiting for the next barbell bench press set, versus if I'm putting in a lot of effort and intensity, which is the key factor to muscular growth as well, by just shortening my rest period. Because now what's happening is I'm doing a little bit less weight, okay, but I'm getting more muscular tissue damage because I'm doing way more reps and way more sets in a shorter amount of time, quicker, with less recovery. So they're just getting beaten down tissue in perspective, for example. And then that basically means that you take me that literally did 20 sets for a back workout, let's say, and someone who did 20 sets for a back workout, I did it in 40 minutes. They did it in an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm very, very most likely going to have more damage if they did the same stuff. It's just because like I'm not giving my muscles any really that much time to rest and recuperate. Obviously, I'm not like gassed when I start my next set, but there's a point in time where I became semi-advanced to this. And remember also, like, although I don't train to be an athlete, my cardiovascular health and my, all that in my endurance is phenomenal for me not ever doing any cardio, for me not doing any athletic based stuff, because I train this way. So it's two different folds. Like, I've never, like, and I told you this is going to go against the grain as well before I let you take over. Like, my calories have not been this low in a long time. My workouts have not been this short in a long time. I only work out 4 days a week. But like I said, I've literally been able to put on 7 pounds of muscle in the past year. I wouldn't even say a year, in the past maybe 8 months. And for me, that's lifting for 7 years, and I was at a plateau for a while. Obviously, I've been injured and fluctuated, but my muscle mass stayed the same for like 4 years. And for me to lower my rest period, my workout times, my weight, my load, my protein intake, my food intake, and just get more done in a short amount of window and gain muscle. I don't know if it's just me being hyper responsive, but it must correlate that I'm able to break through the plateau and literally almost gain a pound of muscle a month.
Yeah.
From this type of training.
There's got to be something going on, right? So when you talk about shorter rest periods, are you doing anything in between those rest periods? Are you doing super sets or compound sets? Are you only doing 2 exercises, or are you literally doing, all right, it's going to be, dumbbell bent over row. I'm going to hit it. I'm going to rest for 30 to 45 seconds. I'm going to hit it again, and I'm going to do that until I'm done with the amount of sets that I want to do, and then move on to the next exercise. How does that look for you?
So if I'm going to do a drop set or a super set, or whatever you want to call it, I will go back to back. So I'm going to let's say I'm going to do pair bench press for the row. Okay. I'm going to do 10 reps of the bench press, jump right into 10 reps of the row. Now, this is depending if I'm trying to work for strength or muscle building. If we're talking about hypertrophy and muscle building, yes, I'm going to jump right into it. And then I'm going to rest. It's the same concept as if I'm doing 4 sets of dumbbell rows, working sets. And let's say I do the 100-pound for, 12 reps. I'm going to rest 30 seconds and then go again. But I'm not resting in between each arm if it's a unilateral movement.
Yeah. I'm
going constantly. And like my health, endurance, my mindset has just improved like substantially. It's funny because people are always like train like an athlete, but I almost found a way to train like an athlete, but also be unathletic at the same time, which is kind of, but look good, which is very funny. It's so funny.
It's a good way to look at it. Now, what is I know you said you had some questions on circuit training. What are some of those, or what are some things that you may be looking to take away?
I wanted to know what do you do in terms of like pairing and circuits? Like, do you like to do opposing body parts for your clients, or do you like to do synergistic stuff where, like we talked about the bench press supersetter paired with something that works on like maybe the serratus or something like that? Like how do you, and also what's your mission on like why do you do circuit training? Is it to lose
I'll
fat?
start. I'll start there because what I do with each client is obviously far, far different. So that's kind of a loaded question or a resisted question, depends how you look at that.
Resisted, yeah.
My mission behind circuit training is the concept of training like an athlete, and knowing that no athlete is going to use any one particular body part in a vacuum. There's nobody out there playing any particular sport that is going to just use a specific muscle group
Hmm.
by its lonesome. Now you could argue like a rower. Okay, yeah, maybe.
Maybe
But
not.
even then, they're putting every ounce of muscle that they have into that one movement.
Hmm.
Now it's heavily working the pull chain and the rhomboids, the traps and the lats and things of that nature, but they're using their legs. Every single ounce of their core is being worked. And once again, right, like their efficiency of breathing while they do that affects the efficiency of each pull. So the mission behind circuit training is to constantly keep the body guessing in a sense. Um, I like multiple different types of circuit training. So for me, um, 3x3 is the easiest and it's the most common, right? You have 3 exercises if we're doing 3 sets. But I like to typically my people that I'm training with 2 or 3 days a week that just do full body every day that we're in there. The typical circuit is going to be a pulling leg exercise with a pulling upper exercise and a core stabilization exercise that really allows them to rest while increasing the endurance of their core and improving upon their functional breathing patterns and ability. So, yes, you can rest in, any given position, but me sitting like this right now, in between a deadlift and a bent over dumbbell row is not going to really be beneficial for me when I start my next deadlift. Okay, so let's put you in a reverse plank. So now we're working those posterior chain muscles. You are in a position where your core from head to toe is stabilized and requiring a certain amount of attention, but we're taking that time as a rest period by focusing on your breathing. So a lot of times people will have clients do a plank for 30 seconds. Well, now that person really doesn't care about the quality of the plank. They just want 30 seconds to be done and over with.
Yeah.
But if I say, okay, your rest here is going to be a plank, and I want 5 deep breaths with a 3-second inhale and a 3-second exhale. Now you know that that's a 30-second plank, right? It's 3x3. It's 6 seconds, for each breath times 5. But I'm not going to count. That's not going to work. We're not counting that. So find your breath within that plank, within that rest time. Regain heart rate variability, while allowing those other muscles to rest as well. So that's a quick insight. I also like to do compound sets if someone is looking for more of a hypertrophy result. So I'll do a kettlebell shoulder press with maybe a push-up or some sort of body weight or light resisted, chest exercise. So we're getting a good amount of blood flow to that area, and just go 2 by 2, but actually do anywhere from 4 to 5 sets.
Now, let me just jump in real quick on that.
Yeah, of course.
This is something for you to take away, and then any other coach watching, or any person that wants to train. Like, if you are feeling an exercise, let's say you have them do the shoulder press, right? The kettlebell shoulder press, and they're like getting a great contraction. They're really feeling it. Like, it's never been better, like they love the exercise. I would almost say, if I had a plan of like pairing it to get better blood flow or just to work on synergistic muscles, I'd throw that one out the window and
The second one.
Yep, and double up on the volume on the one that you're feeling, because chances are, when's the next time or the last time that you're going to feel / have felt that muscle in such a great way. So you should never lose those sights. Yeah, take advantage 100%.
I'm very much, as soon as all my clients come in, how are you feeling today? Because these people have lives. They're doing so many other things. When they walk in that gym, if I have 7 things written down on a piece of paper, the chances are that 5 of them aren't actually going to benefit that person that day.
Yep.
So that's another reason that I love circuit training, is because it's so interchangeable. It's so easy to put together exercises that can synergistically help the person in the state that they're in, from this, and even from warm-up sets, let's get you moving, let's get you in a state of readiness, right? From a central nervous system standpoint, from a locomotion standpoint, and from a breathing standpoint. It's like, how can we do that in a fluid motion? Well, an easy way to do that is to give someone that first exercise that you had planned, and then you're watching them. You're seeing how they're actually performing that, and that tells me everything about how they slept, what they might have ate last night, whether they're stressed or not, because most likely after that first exercise, whatever is on their mind, they're just going to blurb it out.
Yep.
So, okay, if you're in a stress state, now that second exercise can be altered very quickly, and we can do something to maybe help that first exercise look better the next time, or to counterbalance that. And it's just so interchangeable that I find it the most beneficial from that standpoint. But most people aren't looking for that bodybuilding physique, and other people also aren't looking to be athletes.
Correct. Yeah.
Everyone is looking to move through life pain-free and aesthetically feeling good about themselves.
Absolutely.
So to give them those things and those tools to do that, it can't be so structured. It has to be a result of each and every day, how their nervous system is when they get to the gym. Not before, not after, not yesterday, while they're in the gym in front of me, while they're in my hands, So for me, that circuit training just does it. It provides it for me, and it does have a lot of different variables that you can switch in. Sometimes I'll do, like you said earlier, you don't have to do a ton of RAM reps, but if I'm feeling as if, before I was doing, some sort of unilateral leg exercise paired with a bilateral upper body. And then maybe instead of working the core, we decided to, throw the bike or the ski erg or the rower in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how about if I cut out the third one and say, okay, we're going to do that unilateral leg exercise and that bilateral upper body exercise, and we're going to do 5 minutes, as many rounds as you can.
That's what I do sometimes as well.
So let's do a 5-minute AMRAP, and we're not going to burn them out for the rest of the workout, right? Like some people do like 25-minute AMRAPs with like 5 exercises. It's like 10 cals on the bike and 21 hanging knee raises. Like there's a lot going on there, and that almost ends up being the entire workout. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, let's get our working sets in a dense amount of time.
Yeah.
And just back to the fact that like we're kind of speaking the same language in terms of how to approach each client, and no one is the same.
Absolutely.
So, some people can hold, a heavy load on their body. Other people, it's detrimental to the way they even think about being in the gym, never mind the way they breathe or the way they move, right? So you give someone a weight sometimes and they're like, it's so heavy. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's a 20-pound kettlebell, and I'm just trying to have you do some squats. It's not even an eighth of your weight.
I know.
Right? And that's not going to help them any more than maybe just doing an air squat partnered with some sort of tension-based isometric wall sit, so that you're getting the same amount of muscle tissue damage, but you're doing it in a sense where they're actually not worried about it.
Yeah.
Right? That nervous state or that state of it doesn't allow the muscle to actually get any benefit.
It's usually a lot of beginners that have that issue. I run into that issue a lot, and it subsides within a couple of weeks, but they definitely have a lot of doubts than accomplishments. They don't feel like they can't do anything. Mm-hmm. And you just have to be on top of them to be like, look, like I'm not just your coach, I'm your best friend during this journey, number one. Mm-hmm. And like, I really truly believe in you. I wouldn't give you an exercise to watch you crumble and fall. So like, but then again, like you said, if they're really psychoanalyzing and they had a bad day at work, they're exhausted, nothing's going to fix it. So you have to switch it up and definitely try to find the next best thing.
And hit those things that they like.
Mm-hmm.
On those days, put them through the exercises that excite them, or something they've been working on that they were excited about getting further on last time.
You know what's funny with a lot of when I do PARQs and interviews with my online clients, mm-hmm. A lot of it goes really deep than most people into what time of day can you cook food? Do you think you're going to succeed cooking food? Do you think, like, what's your favorite type of training? What training have you done in the past? What kind of sports do you like? I can use all that kind of information to figure out, okay, maybe they're going to hate this type of training. Maybe they're going to hate this exercise, mm-hmm. but they're going to love this, for example. And it's, lo and behold, like, that's something that I wish a lot of trainers would do. And I know you do that, but a lot of people don't. They don't go so in depth into, like, let's look at how you're going to succeed versus fail. And that doesn't just mean, like, do you have any injuries, allergies, and what's your goal? Like, 1,000 more steps in depth than that.
And the notion of asking someone who's looking to you for guidance what their goal is blows my mind, because they're clearly coming to you from the standpoint of, I don't feel comfortable enough with my amount of education to know where I should be and what I have to do to get there. So to ask someone what their goal is, most people are like, well, tone up and like put some muscle on. Like, I don't know.
Usually the response.
Yeah. Right? And when you can ask questions like that and actually get into, well, like, what made you drive here? What actually put
Absolutely.
you in a, in a state of mind where you said, I should go get a personal trainer? Did you look at somebody? Did someone talk to you? You know, if you could look like somebody, who would that person be?
I ask that question all the time.
And those things go a lot further. And I love the question of, when can you cook? Or do you even like cooking?
It's crucial. You're
Yeah.
going to fail them. If you're going to fail them on a test, for example, if you're
Yeah.
not going to ask them, if you're going to ask them to meal prep every day of the week when they're a busy woman that doesn't have time for that crap, like they're going to fail.
Well, I travel 4 days a week. All right, so yeah, so when you get home, cook dinner. Like, no, what?
No.
Sounds ridiculous. But that's right. I think that's the next topic we're gonna go into. There
Yeah.
is nutrition, diet versus lifestyle, micros and macros, counting calories versus not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Much more to come for sure. Is there anything you want to wrap this up with? This load versus resistance and circuit training versus your traditional muscle building techniques?
I'll leave it with this. If you kind of have to go against the grain sometimes to get the results that you want to get, because you better believe that the people that are way ahead of the curve in terms of success or growth, not just physically, financially, mentally, everything, they've found a way. They're not they're not like, hey, I found the way, I found the way. But it's not a secret either. But they're just not. Why would they share that with you? So sometimes you have to go against the grain a little bit and figure out, like, what are some really knowledgeable people doing, and then also try to analyze, like, maybe who do they coach and what are they having to do, and put your reading glasses on for a little while and just try to really be almost like a detective to pick little pieces of information out and then be like, oh my goodness, that's why he had him do that, these past 6 months. I thought that was just, like, bogus, but it's actually, like, genius. So it goes hand in hand to, let's look at like Poliquin and Garanda when they do, like, the knee over toe stuff. People are like, oh my God, knee over toes, like, you're going to die. Your knees are going to fall off. And the more and more I think about it, people still look at me like I'm crazy doing knee over toe stuff, but almost all of my quad training now is knee over toes. And my knees have never felt so good in my whole entire life. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I like how you phrased it, against the grain as opposed to outside of the box, because against the grain speaks to the fact that there's a spectrum and it's infinite in both directions. Outside the box makes us think of this, three-dimensional thing that has an inside and an out, and that's not how I view the world anyways.
No.
I don't think there is a box. Everything is in free space, as we bring it back to the cup analogy.
Absolutely.
Right? Everything is filled with something. There is a pressure to go with the grain, but if you learn how to manage your pressures and go against the grain, your levers and pulleys might work a little better.
Oh my God. Amazing.
So yeah, guys, make sure to continue to check out Jake and everything that he's doing with Revive Muscle. He's got a lot of new ideas, which I'm excited to hear more about. He's helping lots of people, especially if you're listening up in that Boston area. Definitely reach out to him. Do we want to do any sort of I know you've been changing things on the back end. Do you want to do any sort of sale or any sort of incentive for these listeners here?
Yeah, so that's it. I guess they get the first view on it, but I'm releasing a 20% off all programs sale that includes exercise, coaching, even for bundle package purchases and meal plans. And that's basically going to go in effect next week. It's for fall, so it's going to
Okay.
probably be. I think I'm going to release it November 1st and have it
Cool.
go until December 1st.
All right. Well, this will release Sunday, so they'll have a 4-day notice to get ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can't wait to get back on here and talk more about nutrition and some other training topics. I think Jake will be on here frequently.
I will.
We got a
Don't
lot
want to
to talk
miss it.
about.
Don't
What'd
want
you
to miss
say?
it. Don't want to miss the next podcast.
Yeah, definitely not. We're going to go off on a couple tangents. We're very strong-willed when it comes to nutrition, strong-minded. So you go check that out. Once again, thank you all for listening. Subscribe, follow both of us, do all of those things, leave a review, because we're just trying to spread knowledge and help as many people as possible. That's our main thing. So it goes a long way. All right.
Thanks, Dylan.
No worries, Jake. Thank you as well. Peace out. Please, y'all, if you were able to take anything from today's podcast, please share it with your friends, family, and anybody looking to live that free and limitless lifestyle. Or you could even write a review or leave a comment down below for us. It'll be greatly appreciated. Also looking to partner with the best of the best in the brands and services that are going on in these industries that I'm discussing here with guests. And I believe we have some. So please go check them out and support them whenever possible. You will not be disappointed. You just heard it, y'all. 20% off starting November 1st for everything. All programs on Revive Muscle. Gotta go check them out. Jake was kind enough to give you guys the insight a couple days before everyone else. So definitely go check them out. Go see what programs are going to be best for you, how they're going to get you through your plateaus, or start you on the journey of your goals and making those a reality for you. So follow him, subscribe to him, turn on post notifications, and check out the website revivemuscle.com. You won't be disappointed. Oh, and secondly, y'all got to go check out the Breast Cancer Awareness Month shirts that just got released. There is a 3-day opportunity to seize these. 3 days, that's it. They're exclusive. Can't stop, won't stop. Breast cancer symbol with boxing gloves, because the fight is not only yours, it's everybody around you. Can't stop, won't stop. Gotta find a cure. Limitless Theory logo on the back. Everything from t-shirts to tank tops, onesies, and even a long sleeve. So check that out. Use code capital BCAM, all capitals, BCAM, standing for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and you'll get 10% off at checkout on all products, but those shirts are only available for 3 days, and regardless of what you buy, all proceeds are getting donated to a breast cancer awareness foundation. So go check it out, go support. Your fight is our fight. Lastly, our partner store for today is findyourtrainer.com. Findyourtrainer.com is the best in the game, the one-stop shop to help you find a personal trainer in your area. They will be working outside, inside, at private and local gyms. All you can do when you're looking to get healthy is take the first step to your healthiest self by finding you a personal trainer, a professional that will help you customize a workout regimen to your physical needs and abilities. So make sure to check it out. Findyourtrainer.com is a partner store with shop.com/limitless theory. There you can create a free account and have access to 5% cash back on any of the personal trainers that you sign up with and buy sessions through on findyourtrainer.com. And if you are an unfranchised owner, you get 11% IBV. So if you're looking for an in-person personal trainer, someone that you can meet up with in your local area, hit me up and I can give you all the details. Alrighty? As mentioned before, these partnerships are really cultivating the relationships that are going to allow this podcast to continue on for the listeners, for the viewers, and for myself and the whole Limitless Theory community. So please go check them out and support whenever and wherever you can. It definitely won't go unnoticed, and I'm forever grateful. Thank you, and take care.